it's Elizabeth from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. So this is going to be an extended video on the Venus retrograde, which will be happening officially on the 12th of May 2020. And it'll be, I've got a chart that I put at the beginning of this video that you can just go back and look at so you can see all the aspects happening. It's at 11:46 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time at 21 degrees 50 minutes of Gemini. And it will go direct on the 26th of June at 5 degrees Gemini 20 minutes. So it's a good length of time that we have this Venus retrograde. I'm doing this early on, so I'm doing this kind of mid-February 2020 because there's so much happening with this Venus retrograde that I really wanted to get this information out to everybody in advance. But I will be obviously covering parts of this again, or maybe in more detail in my actual monthly videos, say for May, and then for June when it goes forward again. But I'm going to try to do as many details as I can in this. And look at, when I mention different degree points, look at the different degree points in your chart. So we're especially looking at things like Venus, for instance. We're looking at ascendants, midheavens, the sun, the moon, that type of thing, or any like a conglomeration of planets if you've got them around 21 degrees of Gemini or 5 degrees of Gemini would be important for this. Certainly Geminis are, generally speaking, going to be affected by this Venus retrograde. But let's just go into some details about, you know, what is Gemini and how that relates to Venus, that type of thing, and what this may sort of pan out with regards to the Venus retrograde. So when we look at Gemini, the actual glyph or symbol is like two columns, or a door. It's also been referred to as a door. It is ruled by Mercury and the twins, right? So we also can see Mercury as the trickster. And that's another aspect that I think may play out here in this Venus retrograde, is that that's another aspect of, kind of a negative aspect of Mercury. But certainly it loves to socialize. And Gemini likes to collect facts and get information and also, you know, give out information and facts. That's kind of generally speaking. Now, some popular astrologers also like to associate this Venus retrograde and Venus in Gemini with twin flames, and that goes back to what I just spoke about. So there's twins, so there's two people in the Gemini association, and that's possible that this does refer to twin flames as well. But you may hear other astrologers when they start talking about this Venus retrograde in Gemini referring to that too. So I see this Venus retrograde as a time period where you really will be opening up that door. I see it more as a door and you walking through that door. But you may have choices to make, and there very well may be two people involved here that you have to choose between. So now I'm just talking about overall effects here of this Venus retrograde in Gemini. You may have to, though, during this Venus retrograde period to collect a lot of information and observe, right? This is any kind of retrograde, doesn't matter if it's Mars, Venus, or Mercury, always involves you reflecting and going inward and thinking about and reviewing things to see maybe what you missed. And in this case, you're going to be reviewing the facts because Gemini's effect is associated with facts, information, messages. So it may have you individually going back and reviewing some of the messages from maybe your loved ones. But just on the surface, you could have more than one past love come back into your life and communicate with you and maybe want to reignite something from a love standpoint in your life. Now, it can also be friendships too, so just bear that in mind. If you don't have anything like a love come back in, it could be some kind of friend that you literally have not communicated with in some time, and it's significant that they come back in this time period to reignite your friendship. So that can be there too. Now, because this Venus retrograde is in the sign of Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, which is all about communications, you could also expect some classical Mercury retrograde type events happening, even though it's a Venus retrograde. And those types of things are anything to do with messages, computers not working right, texts not being sent to the right person, maybe being sent to an ex-love when you meant to send it to your present love, and phone calls of any sort. Okay, so the last time that we had Venus in Gemini was May 2004 and May 2012. So for some folks, not all, but for some folks, you're going to find actually some connection. There's going to be connection of dots with those years with regards to some part of your love life. And I can actually relate to some of this. I won't go into those details in this video, but I can actually relate to that. So maybe look back to May 2004 and May 2012 and see what was happening in your love life, or maybe not happening in your love life, because there may be some connection here with what happens at this particular Venus retrograde also in Gemini. And again, the retrograde starts on the 12th of May 2020. But we do have a shadow period prior to that that's going to be happening in April. So this is a pretty long-lasting Venus retrograde. I don't think it's going to be an extreme retrograde. And the reason I say that is because what we have is the south node, so every planet has a north node and south node as well. And so for Venus, its south node is actually in Gemini. So generally speaking, this Venus retrograde in Gemini is not going to be veering a huge amount from the ecliptic. And the ecliptic is, of course, where is the apparent path of the sun. And so Venus will go off the ecliptic and on it because of the retrograde, but it's not going to cause any major, like way out of bounds type stuff, or really leaving that energy of the sun to huge degrees. So I think this is going to be like a rectification mainly of your love life, and to maybe have a little bit more of the facts at hand as opposed to the emotions. Because Gemini really isn't a lot about emotions. It tends to be more to do with the intellect and collecting information as opposed to collecting hearts. Although with the trickster aspect, it can certainly collect a few hearts as well. So the shadow period, just if you want to note it, I've got down here, starts on the 10th of April, and that's at 5 degrees of Gemini. And the reason for that, of course, is because when Venus finally does go direct on the 26th of June, it will be at 5 degrees of Gemini. So those are degree points that you want to look at. The 5 degrees of Gemini, like give or take a couple degrees, and then 21, 22 degrees of Gemini, which is the actual degree point it goes retrograde on the 12th of May 2020. Okay, so we've covered the general feeling for what is Gemini, what is the Venus retrograde, and different times that Venus was in retrograde in Gemini as well. Now, the other things affecting this Venus retrograde include some squares to Neptune. Now, Venus retrograde and or direct during this time period will have a square to Neptune 3 times. 2 times in May and 1 time in July when Venus is actually direct. On the 29th of July is when Venus will be completely out of its shadow period. And I wanted to mention another astrologer that I really enjoy reading, Gary Caton, I think is how he's, or Caton is the way he says his name. But Gary Caton has actually done a very great job of elucidating this particular Venus retrograde in Gemini. I really enjoyed reading what he had to say, and he's the one who actually gave me the information about the south node of Venus being in Gemini. So if you want to go into some other detail from a different standpoint, please go visit him at his website. All right, so this is important. When we have Venus, whether it's retrograde or not, squaring Neptune, this is really providing challenges to what we are perceiving and therefore seeing with regards to our love life. Now, it can be in other aspects too, of course. It can be our money as well as our values. But I think for this particular Venus retrograde, I'm getting more the feeling of it's our values and our love life. But for some, it may be money. You have to review how you communicate about your money, how you collect information about your money, that type of thing. But with this Neptune being such a high level of love, right? Neptune is representing the highest level of love. This could be at various times, like I mentioned, 2 times in May and 1 time in July, especially the 2 times in May, where this square forces you to look at what's going on in your love life. Like some actual event happens, maybe a piece of information, because Gemini is involved, comes your way, and you can't put it underneath the carpet anymore, then you actually have to look at this and pay attention to it. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be negative. Maybe you missed something with regards to a great love in your life, and you didn't get a communication, or you didn't understand the communication, and that may now come forward for you. So it can go either way. It doesn't necessarily be a negative thing, but generally speaking, it's going to be things being revealed to you that may have been held back. So this is talking about deception, of course, or at least secrets being held from you. Now, when it goes, when you have this square happening in July, when the Venus now is actually direct, I think this is going to be truly a time when you actually not only see what's truly going on, but take some decision point and maybe communicate, because you're going direct now with Venus, with regards to all this information that you've been collecting. And that's sort of July. Okay, and just to remind you, we're out of shadow of this whole retrograde on the 29th of July. So I'd say the 29th of July onwards is kind of like getting this picture of clearing the decks, where you're going to be more confident having collected all the pieces of information and facts and figures that you need, and past messages to make some decision with regards to your love life. And as I mentioned earlier, it may be between 2 people. Right, so we also have Venus retrograde squaring Mars on the 3rd of June. So just make notes of some of these dates that I'm giving you, because that will, you may want to take some action and you can't do it because you've got Venus retrograde. Now, Venus and Mars together are like the celestial lovers. So it could also represent a time where there's friction between you and your lover or lovers. That's the 3rd of June. Or you can't communicate with each other because this whole Gemini thing being about communication, you may be blocked. That's more what I'm feeling, that there's some block happening on the 3rd of June for some of us. Then on the 4th of June, the very next day, we have Venus retrograde conjuncting the Sun. Now this is significant. So this is, and now it's retrograde. So to me, this is kind of like a real, there may be some kind of message come through here, and it might be from others. Now, when we look at the Sun itself, the Sun itself can stand for a male figure or an authority figure. So this could be a male figure as well, or someone in authority or an authority really help illuminate something in your love life. Now, I'm also thinking this could be if you were going in for counseling, for instance, about your love life or your love lives. Maybe some kind of eureka moment where things come together in your mind with regards to all these things that you've been going over and over against with a counselor or a therapist. There could be some kind of finality where you get it. You get what's going on, either within yourself or with somebody else or other people. Now, I mentioned that the north node of the moons are going to be changing. So at this time, at this Venus retrograde, we have the north node of the moon now in Gemini, right? So this is another layer of Gemini. Communications, messages, phone calls, texts, talking. It'll be at 29 degrees of Gemini, and it will be conjuncting Venus when Venus is direct at 28 degrees of Gemini. So that's going to be on the 5th of August. So now we're entering into August, where you're still going to be having this influence of Gemini and Venus. So after looking at all this, I thought, really, we're looking at August as the month where things, if you're looking at things clearing up or making decisions, it'll probably be August the month that some fateful decisions may be taken. Because when we look at the north nodes of the moon in the universe affecting us individually, it really is our destiny path. So our destiny path for the next year and a half of having the north nodes of the moon in Gemini is really all about the more cerebral aspects of thinking, talking, socializing as well, and collecting information and exchanging information back and forth. It could be like that whole 5G thing that we're talking about. And not all of it has to be negative, but it's going to be kind of in those areas of our lives that we're talking about. So that's just another layer on top of this. So our destiny is very much tied into, individually and collectively, into some aspects of this Venus retrograde. We have the summer solstice that's happening on the 20th of June, and I did a chart for that as well, and I saw that the moon is in Gemini too. Now it's at 25 degrees, 45 minutes of Gemini, but that's not so far off the retrograde degree point of 21 degrees, 50 minutes that Venus retrograde starts off with on the 12th of May in Gemini. So now we're talking about the summer solstice being kind of brought in, at least from an emotional standpoint, because that's really what the moon represents, as our emotional way of showing our emotions is going to be, show me the facts, communicate with me. That's a big one. We need to communicate. So the overarching theme of all this for the summer is we need to communicate. We need to collect the facts, not just, go with our emotions. That's a big thing here. And like I said, it rolls into this summer solstice. So I came up with, I think Gary Caton came up with Summer of Love. And then I said, no, after looking at this might be the summer of discontent. And not for everybody, but it really is going to be a time period where we've got to sort out what we really want in our love life. And we have to look at it from a standpoint of how well do I communicate with this person, or persons for some people, and then make some decisions of what you want to do next with your love life. So expect all that over the summertime period as well, not just over the Venus retrograde, although obviously it's going to be most intense over the retrograde period that really ends at the end of June. Complicating all this, we have a Mercury retrograde, but in Cancer. Cancer is a very emotional sign. It's all about the mother. It's about nurturing. It's where we did have the north nodes up until May. Now, this starts before Venus goes direct. And so this Mercury retrograde in Cancer starts at 14 degrees of Cancer. So you might want to look in your chart for that as well. I actually have this as a significant degree point in my chart. And that's going to be on the 18th of June 2020. This really speaks to our habits, our emotions, our family, our mother. But I think this, if I were to pick one thing, I would say, what habits have we picked up with regards to communicating? So now I'm talking about the Mercury retrograde. Hope I'm not confusing anybody. Influence on the Venus retrograde. I see this as the Mercury retrograde now saying, okay, we're in the Venus retrograde, but I'm now going to ask you, how is your emotions and your habits, and maybe even your family and your mother and what you picked up, affecting how you love? And so this is why I thought it was so important to do this video now, to start. Maybe you can, look at this a few times prior to the Venus retrograde starting, to really set your mind up into a framework of how you can really harness these energies. Okay? So now we're talking about our habits and our emotions, and how we use these emotions to communicate about our love life. All right. Just to cover this whole Venus square Neptune, which is going to be a significant sort of influence over this Venus retrograde period. It also talks about daydreaming, but on the positive side, this is a great time for artistic inspiration, no question of it. From a negative standpoint, we can be living in fantasy and not seeing reality. But this is the great thing that I think this square brings in, this Venus square Neptune, is it will force us to look at any fantasies that we're having, or for those that maybe shoved under the carpet a lot of stuff, or just put the rose-colored glasses on in 2004 and 2012 when we had this Venus retrograde in Gemini. It's not going to be there anymore. You're not going to be able to get away with it. That was my real feeling here. You're going to be seen you're going to be shown what's really going on. Is this a fantasy you're living in? Is this something that just for some reason is a tie-in with your family and the way they did things, that you picked up these habits that aren't good for you, and that since 2004 you've not done the corrective patterns in your love life, and now you're going to get a real opportunity to do it. There's a lot of positive things in here as well. It can see with this Venus square Neptune, it can have relationships breaking up, because you see it's just a fantasy and it's just poof. It's not good for you, but it is highly romantic. Even though it's a square, this can bring in some real high level of romance. And for those vibrating at a high level, and that really maybe have done a lot of work between 2004, 2012, and now, this could bring in still somebody that is good for you. But I would suspect that for the majority of us, that our fantasies will be shown to us, and maybe even that whole knocking somebody off a pedestal, or maybe even us being knocked off the pedestal. Right? That's just some negative aspects that could happen. But it can also be high levels of romance. So nothing wrong with enjoying a little bit of that too. Yeah, so on the 27th and 28th of July, you could probably mark that time period too, because we're going to have Venus going direct. That third square of Venus and Neptune really will have us having those rose-colored glasses taken off. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I think living in reality that's good for us long-term isn't such a bad thing. The other thing that's going to be happening as a heads up in terms of retrogrades is we're then going to have, piggybacking on all this, at the in September, we will have Mars going retrograde in Aries at 28 degrees, so that's September. So once we go through all this Venus, and then on top of that the Mercury retrograde happening at the same time, we'll get through all that. Then we'll have the Mars retrograde. But I think this Mars retrograde in September for the latter part of the year is really going to help us with action. Even though it's a retrograde and it causes us to rethink our actions, I think this is going to be a very positive Mars retrograde because it is in its home sign of Aries. It's going to give us positive action, right? Aries is all about moving forward, action. It's about what I want to do. But it's going to be what I want to do after a lot of reflection with that Venus retrograde and the Mars retrograde in Cancer. So what I'm going to do next is just look at the houses briefly for each of the signs. Now, I'd like you to read initially for your ascendant, so find out what your ascendant is, and then I'll read for the house that mainly this Venus will be. But if you've got your own chart, there may be more than one house that's affected. This is just a general overview and a general reading. If you've got your chart, please look at it and go through these degrees that I've already mentioned and see how it affects you. And maybe leave us some information about that. And especially if you've had things happen in 2004 and 2012, I'd be interested to hear what those things were that happened to you. So we're going to start off with Gemini, because that's where the Venus retrograde is. So from an ascendant standpoint, this will be your first house. Do look at your sun sign too, where the sun actually falls in your chart. But this is your first house, so this is going to directly affect you. So I'm thinking that you're going to do a major overhaul of your love life. But again, when you bring in that Mercury retrograde in Cancer overlapping this Venus retrograde, you're going to look at your habits very carefully and start weeding out some things that maybe just aren't helping work with you with regards to, you know, the love life that you have. Now, it could also, because it's your first house, I would say it could affect all three areas. So it could be your values come into play too, where you decide that some of the habits that you've been keeping all your life aren't helping you with your value of yourself and therefore not bringing the right love into your life. So this may be a whole area that you review over this Venus retrograde period that helps you vibrate at a higher level, right? Harness in that Neptune square from that standpoint too. You know, Neptune really just wants to bring you to high levels of love in the end, right? For Cancer, it is your 12th house. So the 12th house truly is a reflecting house. It also can be an area of where secrets are held, where things have maybe not been revealed to you. And through this Venus retrograde period, you may discover facts and information or communications that you didn't know about, that come to light, that help you understand how your love life has been working or not working, and helps you piece together the things that are working or not working in your love life, and give you an indication of either choosing between two people or you deciding what kind of love you want in your life, what vibrates at a high level for you. You know, Neptune does rule that 12th house. That's the house of Pisces. So you could also, I guess, meet somebody that at its highest level could be a guru for you that you may become romantically involved with as well. But I just caution you with all the squares and that you keep your eyes open and, you know, go back to that whole Gemini influence of, you know, collect the facts and really listen to what people are saying. You know, actions speak louder than words, Cancer. For Leo, it's your 11th house. Now Leo, as a sign, you just love love. And you also love to have fun. So for you, more than I think a lot of the signs, you really are affected one way or the other by love. Now, although this isn't happening in your sign, it's your 11th house. So I think this could be you, and the 11th house rules friends and groups. You may engage in some kind of activities with friends and groups or some group or friend from the past you look at more now as someone that you can communicate with at an intellectual mind level, but that now may mean something from a heart level. And it's possible, okay, going back to that whole 2004 and 2012, that Leo, you've known this person since 2004, 2012, and you've always communicated well together, but haven't had a romantic relationship, and you start entertaining that idea right now. Yeah, I'm getting that intuitively for you, Leos. For Virgo, it's your 10th house. 10th house is career. Just on the surface, I would say you could meet somebody or have met somebody at work in your career that you now are viewing from a romantic standpoint. Now, I'm also getting intuitive hit that there might be two people at work that you're involved with that you have to make a choice with. And you may literally come up with, with a list of love number one, love number two, and put a list together and look at what each has. But overarching, you're looking at, can I communicate well with this person? Does this person communicate well with me? But I get this, the playing field's going to be at work where you have your career, that this is going to play out for you. Yeah, I'm actually getting that for you. Now, the other thing that could happen for you, because it's your 10th house, Venus could be money. So it might be you negotiating money over this Venus retrograde period too, where you decide that you want to speak about and put the facts down about the fact that you need more money in your career to support yourself. Could be that way too. For Libra, it is your 9th house. 9th house, foreign people, foreign things, and it also is higher education. And of course, Venus is the other sign that Libra rules. So both Taurus and Libra are at least very much affected by something like a Venus retrograde because Venus rules your sign. Right off the bat, I'm thinking a foreign person for you becomes prominent, or maybe more than one foreign person comes prominent for you. And you fall in love with somebody that maybe you take a trip somewhere, a long distance trip, and you fall in love with someone that's a foreigner, and or maybe more than one foreigner. And this Venus retrograde period, you're communicating back and forth with them, deciding what to do about this maybe great love that you have. Yeah, that's what I'm getting. The other thing is that you could fall in love with somebody that is in a higher education system. And again, this Venus retrograde period is a time where you're communicating back and forth, and maybe at the end of the Venus retrograde you decide that you communicate so well with this person that you're falling in love with them, that you find this cerebral connection has turned into a heart connection for you. For Scorpio, it is your 8th house. And the 8th house, you actually rule the 8th house. Now the 8th house is a number of things, but it's many times our psychological selves. So this could have you reviewing how you psychologically process the love in your life. And it could be for you that you realize that for some reason you put this person on a pedestal that's in your love life that maybe doesn't belong there. And at this time you start taking down the facts and communicating with them, coming up with a decision plan of, does this person deserve to be on this pedestal? Alternatively, somebody could be doing that for you as well. Now, this can also be a time of deep emotional type things, where things may come up for you, or you're triggered by someone in your love life that brings up things for you that may not be pleasant. It can also be a money house as well, this 8th house. So this could be a time period of negotiating loans for you, where at the end of this time period you may have a really solid loan in place that helps you put together some plan that may involve the love of your life, right? Or maybe you've got to, with your present love, put together this loan that helps you maybe get a house, get married, etc. For Sagittarius, it's your 7th house. And the 7th house is partnerships. But it's all partnerships. But because Venus is involved in here, we're just going to focus on your love life. So you could potentially literally have somebody come into your life that you really communicate with. And again, you also may have had this initiated back in 2004 and 2012, and it's coming back again for you, where it may manifest in an actual marriage for you. And this could be wonderful for you, Sagittarius. Pay attention to who comes into your life. And again, you should also go back and see, was there someone that entered your life in 2004 and or 2012 that actually made you feel really good, that you communicated well with them, but nothing came of it romantically. This may be a time in 2020 where something manifests itself in a marriage, for sure. For Capricorn, it's your 6th house. And the 6th house does, contain a lot of things. It's our health, generally speaking. But it's also our day-to-day job. So I'm thinking, just on the surface, that there could be one or more people that you work with day-to-day that you're romantically attracted to, but you're not sure which one you want to choose. So this time period may be a time when you start collecting information and see how well you communicate with this person and how well they communicate with you in a job situation, where then maybe in the end it becomes a romantic situation of the heart. But this can also be you reviewing your health, right? And because Venus kind of rules many of the heart things, this could be you reviewing maybe your heart health at this time. I'm not saying it's going to become a big issue for you, but that you may have to do something with regards to your health that becomes important for you long term, in terms of resolving some maybe minor issue. What else can I see about the 6th house? Yeah, I think the big thing I see with you, Capricorn, is that you may meet one or more persons at work in your day-to-day job, and you may not be sure which one that you want to get involved with, and you need to collect a few facts and see how well you communicate before picking that person. With Aquarius, it's your 5th house. Well, the 5th house is the house of romance and children and creative, pursuits. But if we just stick with the love, this could be literally the beginnings of a new love in your life. So this doesn't mean it'll be a marriage for you, like I spoke about with Sagittarius, but this could be a new love ushered into your life. And because it's Gemini, it could be more than one person ushered into your life. And you have to make a decision between one person or the other. But it can also be a time period where you could be, if you're looking to get pregnant, you could, get pregnant at this time. It's also about creative projects to do with, anything to do with beauty. So that sort of thing could happen as well for you. Yeah. The 5th house is I've always viewed it as really, it is the house of new love, creativity, and really about that heart on the sleeve. So as a sign, Leo rules the 5th house, and Leo very much is about, pride and going after the object of its affections. So that type of thing could be happening around this Venus retrograde period for you. For Pisces, it's your 4th house of home. Generally speaking, it's the 4th house of home. It also can be to do with your childhood as well. But I would say, just on the surface, you could meet somebody that is either in the home or associated with your home. So I guess that could be someone in real estate. Say you're thinking of buying a home. I'm not sure where I'm coming up with this, but of course Venus is about money too. So maybe you are thinking of buying a new home and you meet somebody, male or female, that you're really attracted to. And through the process of buying this new home, that you fall in love. And that's just my initial take of what I'm feeling about this for you, Pisces. Now you also, Pisces, have Neptune in your sign, and depending where, when your birthday is, it's a little more than halfway through Pisces right now. That's Neptune I'm talking about. But Neptune can add a huge romantic factor to this too. So maybe leave comments with regards to when you were born, and we can figure something out for different individuals that have Pisces as their rising sign. It might be interesting to see. What else could you have happen? With the Venus retrograde in your 4th house, you could also have two things. You could be renovating your home, or have to go back and redo things with regards to something happening in your home at this time. And none of these things have to be negative. It just means that, you know, it's not a time of moving forward, it's a time of looking at what needs to be done in your home. So it could be beautification of your home, especially with, you know, you vibrating at the highest level of beauty, being Pisces, where you want to beautify your home, and you go and get lots of different you know, quotes from different people that help you understand what's going to cost to renovate your home, and what you want to do to renovate your home. For Aries, it's your 3rd house, and 3rd house, it combines a number of things, the 3rd house. It can be your siblings, it can also be just communications generally speaking. And so I think with Venus there, I would say that there's going to be a lot of communicating back and forth with regards to your love life. And I feel that this is going to be you communicating even maybe with groups of people, where out of those groups of people you may meet the love of your life. The other thing too is Venus is about, you know, you could take Venus and add it to voice and beautify your voice. So this could be you taking singing lessons. This could be you taking elocution lessons, where you learn to use your voice or project your voice in a beautiful way that, you know, assist you maybe with your career. But it could be through some kind of maybe course or communication. Maybe it's a course that you take over this period of time, from the 12th of May through you know, the 26th of June, that you meet somebody that you fall in love with. And maybe you're both taking this public speaking course together. You know, maybe Toastmasters or something like that. Okay, that's for Aries. So we finish off with Taurus. And so for Taurus, it's your 2nd house. And the 2nd house very much is related to Venus. So this is your values, it's money, that type of thing. So this could be a combo effect for you. You certainly could have a new love come into your life, but it might be associated with commerce of some sort and beauty. So maybe even the beauty industry will influence the situation for you in your love life. But Venus rules your sign, right? So there's going to be a little more of an influence for Venus-ruled signs, and that's you. You also have Uranus there at the moment. So depending where these degrees fall in your personal chart, I would say with the Uranus influence, you could have someone unexpectedly drop into your life. And I don't know why, but I'm just thinking someone from the beauty industry, but it could also be someone from the real estate industry too. Come into your life that not only helps beautify your life, but maybe a significant love in your life. Or, and again, I'm getting this as an intuitive hit, they could literally bring somebody to you that you fall in love with. And again, this is just an intuitive hit that I'm getting for you, Taurus. But it's a nice combination to have with Venus ruling your sign, to have the Venus retrograde in your second house. Yeah, this could be certainly a wonderful new love coming into your life. And because we have Uranus there too, it'll be someone maybe unexpected. And also the other thing that goes with Uranus being in your sign is that it's someone that you may not have thought of before, right? So this may not be your typical person that you would fall for. So that's for you, Taurus. Okay, I think I've covered everything in this, but I will be comments on and off as I think about things after this video. But I thought this was just so exciting, everything that's happening in this chart for the Venus retrograde in Gemini. But again, go back to the last time we had this happening. They were a little different in May 2004 and May 2012. We had more of an exact conjunction happening in these signs where we don't really have that this time. So it was a little more exact and precise in May 2004 and May 2012. It doesn't mean this will be any less important, but maybe look back to those time periods to see what may have come in with regards to your love life. And you may have a continuation of a person or persons in those years, or you could have a whole new thing happening at this time. But I wish you the best of luck. Please leave me your comments. It's always interesting hearing about people's love lives. All right, I think I'm going to leave it there. We will, I'm sure, have lots of comments coming back and forth, and I will add things as I either think about them or get additional insights myself into this Venus retrograde in Gemini. Please take care of yourselves, and let's open up the comments and have some conversations. Take care. Bye for now.